Okay guys, welcome to a new feature. Is it going to be a feature? It's all going to depend on whether this is Pish or not. I haven't even thought of a name for this thing. What we've got is we've got a couple of the good lads that have been watching my channel for about 2 years. God knows why. Anyway, let me introduce them. Firstly, we've got Mr. Jamie Williamson. Welcome, sir.
Hello there. How are you?
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
And secondly, we've got Mr. Brian C. I have no idea what the C stands for, Brian. Welcome.
Hello there. It stands for calendar.
Calendar?
Calendar.
Excellent. Is that the same spelling as in calendar up near Stirling?
Oh, no.
It's not?
It's Callender.
Ah, right, okay. Excellent. Well, listen, thank you very much for joining me. This must be a wee bit surreal for you guys, is it?
It's totally surreal.
It's very strange. I had no idea that you were actually a real person.
Aye, it's actually quite nice to actually have some feedback rather than just talking to an inanimate camera. So, anyway, listen, what we're planning to do is just talk about stuff. There's nothing really planned at all, and we'll just see how it goes. So anyway, firstly, listen, we'll kick off with you, Jamie. Tell the guys a wee bit about yourselves.
Okay. I live in Holland. Yeah. I live in Holland. I've been here for about 7 years because I'm married to a Dutch lady. There isn't a very big gaming scene over here. There weren't that many arcades in the 80s, only in the very big cities. So for all my retro goodness, yeah, I'm beyond gaming goodness, dependent on YouTube and all that kind of thing. I don't actually know anybody over here who is into classic computer games, so I stand alone, but I'm proud.
Yourself, Brian, you're obviously with that accent, you're from Scotland as well, or North England as they like to call it.
You should be so lucky.
Yeah, I'm from Edinburgh, born and bred.
Are you really? Yeah, I should actually know that accent. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I first got into the retro. Did you get the retro T-shirt I bought you?
No, thankfully my post must have lost it.
That's a shame. No. I've been into the computer game scene since early 80s.
Was this when you got your very first system? Was it?
Well, I was into it quite a while before that. The first game system I got was a TV game console. It had like the Pong on it with the two straight legs.
Was it the bright orange burnt orange by Binatone?
It was grey and it had orange buttons. You could have tennis, which was one line at each side, or you could have hockey, which was 2 lines at each side, or there was football. It had 4 lines at each side and a box round it with a gap at each side for the goals. Beep, 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 beep.
Aye, that was my first foray into computer games. It was, believe it or not, it was actually my granny that bought that. She didn't actually buy it, well, she did kind of buy it for me, but she did it in a roundabout way. I went to see her one day, and she said to my granddad, "Go and show Alan, or go and show him what you've bought him, or what you've bought." And he came in with this Binatone thing, plugged it into the TV, and you know, within 5 minutes, he's like, "Do you want to take it home?" I'm like, aye, can I get it? So it was obviously both for me, but aye, it's funny, even, you know, it's easy to kind of look at stuff now and say, "Oh God, that game is really shite," and all that.
I played it for hours and hours and hours.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
It took like 6T batteries.
Ah, that's right. It took these big bloody huge batteries, and the problem with these is if you happen to lose the bottom to the thing, the sheer weight of them, you couldn't get it to stay.
I've got a slightly more in-depth story about that. My dad, when he was working, he was a TV and video engineer, and he actually got one of the very earliest Pong machines. So early. Wasn't even built. It was in a kit form, and he had to assemble it himself. He had to solder it and everything. And obviously, I think I was about 6, 7 at the time, and I was just watching this like it was alchemy or something. I went to the midst, and yeah, as soon as my sort of friends came out and saw it, you know, our minds were completely blown. That's what kids miss out on today, is that sense of wonder at this new technology.
Yeah.
You have to
I know I sound like an old fart. Yeah, yes.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. Now I've got an interesting, I think I've mentioned it before in one of my waffles. I got to the point I was getting bored rigid. The problem with these games was you really needed a pal to play football with you. I mean, the hockey, not the hockey, the, what do you call it, squash. Yeah, that's stretching a wee bit.
Yeah, that was
The funny thing is, there's only,
the
as far as I
world.
can recall, there's only ever been 2 squash games ever released in any video system. It was Jonah Barrington's squash on the C64 and squash for the Binatone. So the fact that there was like a 20-year gap between squash games would obviously tell you something. But
3 walls and an open wall on the right hand side. What's that?
yeah, I actually got bored pretty quick with it. I found it very limiting. But then what I discovered, if I flicked the switch on and off really fast several times, it would come up what I could only describe as a scrolling road, and you had like 2 sides of the road, and the lines were moving down, and I thought this was fantastic. Like it looked like it was a Night Driver or something, but obviously there was no.
The world's first driving game. Yeah. So do
And
you
I
guys
made it
remember
up and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you couldn't interact with it. But you know, I personally, although yeah, you could say, well, that was the start of everything, and it was the start of it. But I found I got bored very, very quickly of the Pong machines.
So what was the first system or arcade game that blew you guys away then?
That really blew us away. The first one that really blew me away, arcade-wise, was Outrun. I remember in Portobello, got the massive hydraulic Outrun.
That's the only one I played, Brian, in Portobello.
Oh, and this thing was amazing, you know, because it was so big, and the amazing music, and you know, and it was like...
Down one, yeah.
Was it like, oh, no, it couldn't have been a pound this shot, maybe 50 pence.
It was 50p a shot, yeah.
Which was, you know, 50p for one game, and I mean, the crowds round it, and it's just, it was just...
I remember when I first played Outrun. What I discovered with arcade games is, when I play them in MAME or whatever, I do better than when I play them in the arcade. And I realised that when you've actually paid to play a game, I certainly put more pressure on myself to not fuck it up.
You get nervous.
Yeah, and I get nervous, whereas when you're playing it in MAME and it's just pressing 5, pressure, and I've actually completed Outrun a couple of times on MAME, but I couldn't do it in the arcade.
Have you really?
Yeah. I did complete one arcade game. I completed the original Hang On.
I love Hang On. You had Hang On and Super Hang On.
Aye.
Oh, just amazing.
For me, I mean, the Outrun, it's funny, I think I've mentioned this again before. There's certain video games, what video games sort of I was going to say reminate, that's not a word, what resonate in your head due to the sound. I mean, when I think back to, I used to go to, my mate was at Edinburgh Uni, and we used to go through to the student union place, and it's quite funny because you had to have a student union card, but the guy in the door obviously didn't give a shit, because you just flashed your cash line card and he let you in. But when I can always remember going in, and I was usually under the influence of a few pints of lager, and there's certain games, Gauntlet 2, and this Gauntlet, Jailbreak is probably one of the noisiest, loudest games you could ever play. You know, it's so loud, it's so loud, and then you've got the Hang On, ding 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 ding. And you get the big spinning super hang-on spinning out. It's funny that there's certain games that just the actual noise. Obviously Defender as well is another one, but they seem to have their volume turned up a lot louder than other games.
Yeah, just the first time I saw it, and I was just blown away by it, and I actually just stood and watched it for about half an hour, just watching people playing it. Before I sort of climb in and have a go myself, and it was just back when. Every new generation of games, there've been nothing like it before. Just a wonderment. I mean, Brian was saying that when he first saw Outrun, same with me. There's just been nothing like it before. ever, anywhere. And it was incredible, and I missed those.
Was that the sort of first kind of sprite scaling Sega game?
The first sprite, no, Turbo was the first one in 1982, I think. Turbo, yeah, in 1982.
Was that a sprite scaling game, was it?
Aye, yeah.
Right, really? I'm not. I thought Turbo was just the wee kind of moving up the screen type thing, a bit like, is it Monaco GP?
That's how it plays, but graphically it's sprite scaling. I mean, it's a lot more primitive than Outrun, of course. But I think that was the first sprite scaling racing game, because it was a year before Pole Position.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, playing compared to what would follow, because it was all just about passing cars. And even though there were corners in the game, you didn't have to. They were just. So yeah, but it was the first one sprite scale free racing game ever.
Kind of breaking up again a bit there, Jamie. Not sure what's happening. You're clear, and then it kind of goes a bit thingy. But yeah, I totally agree on the with Outrun thing. I think it was just it was. I mean, apart from the actual obvious visuals, and you had the absolute amazing music, it was the sheer scale of the things. And you're sitting in that cockpit, and you see this big sort of articulated lorry thundering.
And the first time you get to this, you manage to get to the split road and make the first checkpoint. It's just amazing. In fact, you can choose which way you want to go in that, and it's just
genius.
Mm-hmm.
What was your question again, Brian? What game first blew you away? Or was it yours, Jamie?
Question. What the first thing that blew you away?
The first game that blew you away. It made your kind of jaw hit the floor. I mean, yeah, probably. I would probably tend to agree with Outrun. I mean, it was the first big. Bloody hell, look at this type thing. I mean, we were playing conversions that were fairly credible on our 8-bit machines, and then this just moved the goalposts. This was a game that I thought, bloody hell, we're never going to get to play that on our home machines, and unfortunately, looking at the conversions, that was pretty much on the money. But I would say that, I mean, I would probably say the first game that really got under my skin. I never really got to play it, but to me it was absolutely magical. It was like, it was awesome, was when I first saw Galaxian. I mean, obviously I think the first kind of main machine, I remember playing Pong in Edinburgh Airport, but again, it was pretty boring. And then they got a Space Invaders machine in my local sports centre, which again, I mean, you couldn't really get overly enthused about sort of black and white things, but I mean, it was obviously, the fact that you're interacting with them was pretty special. But when Galaxian came along, it was just incredible. You had this starfield, glowing stars that were kind of blinking away, scrolling down, and then you just got the most awesome sound effects and music. Not the music. There was no music as such, but it was just that game really just, I thought, that's awesome. And if somebody had told me back in, I don't know, 1980 probably, that, in 20 years... 20
I'm a nerd.
20 years' time, you're going to be playing this actual game in your house, it would have just blown my mind, but...
Are any of you guys talking about games that blew you away, and games that are like nothing you've ever seen before? And are you guys familiar with iRobot?
iRobot, did you say?
iRobot.
I came across this in 1983, and basically it's a 3D shooter. But it's the first ever game anywhere that has guns ever.
Mm-hmm.
All the other games have been wide graphics, Star Wars and all those kind of things, and Tempest and all that kind of stuff. And this one actually has flat shaded polygons, and never seen anything like it. And it plays really well. The first time I saw that, me and my mate were just stood staring at it because we were just couldn't get our heads around what we were looking at. And yeah, I mean, it's compared to Outrun, it's a very basic game, but it still plays well. You should check it out in Mame. It was first ever proper fun.
Yeah, does it actually play okay in Mame? I've always thought it wasn't really a good Mame game.
No, it plays perfectly.
Oh, does it?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Even in modern MAME, with its more demanding on the resources, iRobot plays perfectly. And basically, it's kind of like a 3D Amidar. You have to sort of colour in the platforms, but yeah, there's a lot more to it than that, and you should check it out. The first ever 3D game, and it even allowed you to change the camera angle as well. The first time that had appeared. So yeah.
Did it have a kind of button on the cab itself?
You press the start. You actually press the start button to switch the camera angle. Yeah.
I can't say I've ever seen an iRobot machine in the flesh.
There were only about 500 of them in the world. It was a flop because nobody could get their heads around it. But it's really worth checking out. It's mind blowing for the time. It was just incredible.
So was it just it was too far ahead of its time, really?
Yeah. I mean, not only that, but it even had a virtual toy. You could choose to play the game, or you could choose to basically just fill the screen, draw on the screen, filling it with 3D objects from the game, which was a waste of your money. But yeah,
How did that, was it timed or something? Was it?
Yeah. But people, it was so far ahead of its time that people just couldn't get their head around it and didn't really play it. But looking back now, so much of what we see in gaming today started with iRobot. You know, the changeable camera angle. Like I say, it was the first filled 3D game as well. Anywhere on any system.
Who made the game, Jamie? Was it
Atari?
Was it? It was Atari.
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah. They actually had to completely reinvent the hardware to make this thing, and it cost them a fortune. They actually lost money on the game, I think.
Yeah.
Because they'd spent so much developing it, and then, like I say, it was a flop. But it's really good. You should try it.
I'll need to do a mashup of that, actually.
Yeah.
I've never... The only time I actually see it getting played is when you watch Steve Benway's channel.
He's got a little clip of it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I've got a question for Brian, actually. So Brian, as we know, you're a big Amstrad CPC fan.
Oh yeah.
And I'm not mocking you. I think there were some really good games on the system. But what made you choose that system over the C64 and the Spectrum, which were obviously the really popular ones? Why the Amstrad?
Well, a simple answer to that, it was a present from my dad.
Ah, right. Fair enough. That's a simple answer.
Was it a Christmas present or birthday present, Brian? Christmas?
Yeah.
Did you ask for something? Did you ask for a computer, or did you ask for an Amstrad? Or
No, he just surprised me with it.
Oh, wow.
That's good.
My dad was working in John Lewis, and we had...
John Lewis.
And was it the colour screen, or was it the green one?
Well, the first one I got had a green screen, and then a couple of years later, I got the one with a colour screen.
You played the green screen for 2 years?
I got the green screen once.
That's determination, I'll tell you. Staying power, mate. I'm
They had
impressed.
the modulator for the TV, but the modulator for the Amstrad, it was a massive thing. because the power supply for the Amstrad is built into the monitor, the modulator for the TV had to have the power supply built into the modulator. So you had this massive, like 2 house bricks things.
Wow.
But,
I must admit, the Amstrad had the best keyboard, without a doubt. I loved the design of the Amstrad, the case.
Aye.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I mean, I've not got any. It's a lot. I think a lot of what you enjoy watching nowadays is what you had exposure to back in the day. I mean, I had a Commodore 64. My mate had a Spectrum. We used to go to a computer club every Wednesday. It's quite funny. You had to take your own TV, so in fact, you did have to take your own TV. You'd be carrying this suitcase with your C64 and all your stuff in it, and the TV under one arm. You used to walk for like 3 miles to this computer club, and all we did was copy games. I mean, that was basically what we did. It was mostly Spectrum owners. They were usually the wee snotty-nosed kids that I was 17, we were the kings, and they were the wee snotty-nosed kids of the Spectrums. We had the C64s and disk drives, and then you had a couple of the guys that had Ataris, and the only game they ever really played was Stealth, which I have to say absolutely pisses all over the C64 version, but there was no BBC people. probably because they were all still at boarding school.
No, normal people couldn't afford a BBC.
And I think that Amstrad, when did Amstrad come out?
84.
What year was it? 84. So yeah, I'm just thinking I was going to the computer club probably 85, 86, 87 maybe. And yeah, but there was nobody ever came along with Amstrad. The only person I knew was my mate Mark. And he wasn't really that into computers, and I remember him bringing it up to my house one day, and I think it was Steve Davis Snooker was on it. It was actually excellent, really good. So I have got no exposure at all to Amstrad.
The only exposure I had to the Amstrad, which did impress me, was in a computer shop. I remember when Gauntlet was coming out, and I think the Amstrad version was the first one released. It came out just maybe a week or two before the C64 and Spectrum versions. And there was one running on an Amstrad in a shop, and what blew me away about it, and what I still love about the Amstrad, is the colour palette. The colour palette just pissed all over the C64. I mean, the C64 was so brown and grey. And don't get me wrong, I'm a C64 guy, that will always be my machine. But the Amstrad colour palette was just a thing of beauty, I must admit. I mean, it couldn't scroll for shit, but its palette was brilliant.
Oh, come on.
No.
The problem with the Amstrad was too many Spectrum ports.
Yeah. It was the same Z80 chip, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So all it was like sloppy conversions. Yeah. I mean, it's the Amstrad, and probably I would say the Atari as well. There are two machines that, when games ran well in them, they were absolutely spectacular, and they would blow the bloody Spectrum and the Commodore 64 out of the water.
Like
but then, sorry.
It's like a Spectrum with colour and no colour clash.
Yeah. Well, here's a question, lads. Each system, dare I say, even the BBC probably. We'll leave the BBC out of that because other than Elite had bugger all. Yep, flame away, BBC owners, if you want to. Give me a thumbs down. Anyway, yep, I mean, the main machines, Spectrum, C64, Atari, Amstrad. Brian, what would you say were the good genre games that each of these machines actually did?
Believe it or not, driving simulators. I mean, Chase HQ on the Amstrad was amazing, but you know what? The driving game I spent most time playing was Speed King. I mean, it was very simple, but it's so fast. Yeah, a motorbike game.
Was it digital integration, was it?
Yeah, because it was like $1.99 or $2.99.
Yeah. Well, I bought it when it was full, I pirated it when it was full price.
It's so fast. I mean, if you're playing Silverstone, when you get to the third bend, you're going so fast, and you go flying off the track, and me and my dad, like, competing for lap times. Just, spent hours.
Did they all have some, like, 6 gears or something?
Yeah,
6 4
yeah.
That's actually quite a good game. So, I mean, what you're saying is that the Amstrad was good for driving games? I think so, yeah.
Apart from Outrun. But mind you,
apart from Outrun, but there's no decent version of Outrun in any system.
That was so disappointing, wasn't it? I mean, just
yeah. I mean, I think am I right in thinking that the Spectrum was probably down to sheer processor power? I mean, I've got a mate who's pretty technical, and I think that the Spectrum was something like 1.8 times quicker than the C64. So the Spectrum was particularly adept at filled polygons and vector graphics, wasn't it?
It was better at graphics, yeah. Elite runs faster on the Spectrum than it does on the C64.
Yeah. Whereas the C64 obviously couldn't do vector graphics for toffee. I mean, I think the C64, I mean, some of the games on the C64, just arcade games, I mean, stuff like Uridium, they shouldn't technically be running on that system. Yeah. They're just incredible.
The C64, the advantage it had apart from the sound chip was the sprites and the scrolling. So, I mean, you asked Brian about the genre for the Amstrad. I would say that for the C64, it's shoot-'em-ups.
Yeah.
I think that's where it excelled. Again, it's because the hardware was suited to shoot-'em-ups. There weren't that many great driving games on the C64. There were a couple of decent ones, but there was
Super
nothing
Cycle was pretty good, although it was piss easy.
Yeah, it was far too easy. Technically, it was good. I didn't really... The what, sorry?
The Super Cycle, did that have the track with the gates on it?
Are you thinking of Enduro Racer?
I remember there was a motorcycle simulator, and like the third track, there was like gates halfway across the road, so you had to. I was thinking something different.
That sounds like Boogie Boy to me.
No.
Give him some credit, dearie me.
Supercycle was a straight sort of hang-on rip-off. I mean, occasionally there was an oil puddle or
another
oil puddle in the road, but
another bike. Yeah, I think you were kind of like cycling towards the suburbs of the town or whatever. It was like Washington and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So
it's actually a really nice game, but it was just too easy.
Yeah.
It's what what do you call it? Hang on should have been on the C64.
Definitely.
Hang on, about Hang on the Amiga, absolutely amazing.
That was the second one, I think.
Yeah.
Was that Super
Hang On? On the Amiga version of that was perfect.
It was.
It used the mouse, I think, which was the analog controls.
It was, for the time, it was so well programmed, that game, really.
Oh, yeah.
It blew me away. I actually bought, that was one of the last games for the Amiga that I legitimately paid real money for, so... Yeah, even though I could have pirated it, some games were so good that even if I could get free, these guys money, Central Soccer, for the same reason,
Yeah, I was exact.
Going back to the Amstrad briefly, I wanted to ask Brian. Brian, you may be aware of this, but making games for the CPC. A couple of years ago, a fantastic version of R-Type was released. Have you seen it?
I didn't know that.
Oh, you should search for it. It's brilliant.
Sorry, Jamie, what was the game? I didn't quite catch that. What was the game?
R-Type.
R-Type.
R-Type. Right.
Yeah. Some homebrew coders have completely redone it for the Amstrad CPC. Full colour graphics, all the sprites, everything, and it is incredible.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
I loved R-Type on the Amiga.
Yeah.
That's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
It's funny though, R-Type is one of these games, I've never really seen a bad version on anything. Even the Game Boy, bless it, it does a really good job, you know what I mean? I've never seen any bad versions of R-Type.
That's true. None of the versions were completely shite, were they? They were all playable.
Yeah. And dare say even the Spectrum one was pretty good as well. I don't know what it was. It was because technically it's one of the kind of most graphically intensive shoot 'em ups that you're ever going to see. But I mean, when I say that, I've only really played, touched on maybe the first level for a few minutes. I don't know how some of the systems would handle like is it the second or third level? You get the big kind of spaceship and that kind of thing coming in, the big mothership thing. But it was one of these games that just seemed to have a really good version in every system.
Great conversions, perfect.
The Spectrum version was incredible.
Yeah, the Atari. Again, it's a system that it came out. I mean, when the Atari 800 came out, I think it was something like $800 to buy, and it came out. I mean, believe it or not, it came out something like 1978. It was, it was way ahead of its time. But the problem being is the price in the UK and Europe is just ridiculous. So it never really got the sort of coverage it deserves. But now that I've got, I mean, I think at the last count I must have about 10 different types of Atari. I love the Atari to bits. It's an awesome machine. I would have to say that is probably the most capable 8-bit machine of anything. When games are done properly, I always remember the famous article in Zap 64, or was it just called Zap? You'll tell me, Jamie. Was it called Zap 64 or Zap?
Zap 64.
Was it? I can never remember.
Or was it Zap? All of a sudden my brain doesn't work. Now that I'm on the spot.
See, in fact, wait a minute. I shall tell you now when I go and look in my ridiculously large archive of Amiga stuff, not Amiga stuff, magazines. Here we go. Various.
It was Zap 64, yeah.
Was it Zap 64? Yep. Not that I doubt you for 1 second. It's called Zap 64. Yep. What was I talking about? Yeah, there was Archer McLean. I think it was the very first one. They had all the sort of various programmers in, and they were saying like Jeff Minter and all these guys, Andrew Braybrook, Why do you think the C64 is the best computer? Da, 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 da. And Archer McLean said, well, actually, the Atari's much better. It's twice as powerful. And when I ported Drop Zone across it, I had to kind of downsize the graphics and the frame rate and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, the Atari is an amazing machine. In fact, there was a version of Space Harrier that was released about maybe 2-3 years ago. I think it requires the 128 version, but it's astonishing, you know, when you consider it's running on an 8-bit machine.
Wow, I love the fact that these guys are doing newer versions to show what the machines can really do, you know.
It's astonishing. Some of the stuff that's coming out now. So talking about now, I know I hate this word retro, but I just have to get over it. What changes? What changes? I think anyway, that's for another podcast. What changes have you guys seen over the last 20 years? I mean, when did you? In fact, that was a question I wanted to ask you. I mean, myself, I said I got the C64. Now back in 1985, whenever it was, when you wanted to get a new computer, it was never an option to keep the existing system and buy a new one. You had to sell to buy. So I got the C64 and I sold that, got the Atari ST, sold that, got the Amiga, sold that, got the SNES, sold that, got a PC. It's only been in the last maybe, 10 years that I've started to kind of buy systems. But did you guys ever leave the sort of the retro scene, or have you just always enjoyed, have you always been into it?
You first, Brian. Go on.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you how I discovered this channel. I used to like listening to dance mixes on the radio, and there was a guy who used to mix 10 tracks in 10 minutes. He'd play it on a Saturday evening, and it was called his 10-minute mashup. So I was looking for these mixes. I thought I'll have a look on YouTube, because all music from whenever is always available on YouTube. So I typed 10-minute mashup into YouTube, and on the list of stuff was this 10-minute mashup. This Scottish guy, and I can't remember, was it some Sewer Rats or was it Superman?
Oh no! Superman was number 2, I think. I can't remember the life of
the second one.
The second one was Crazy Kong.
Right.
What was it called? It was a Amiga. It was a CD, not a CD32. It was a Mega CD game. It was. Aye.
Wow, so that's how you discovered Alan's channel.
I was discovered Alan's channel. And I thought, that's nice to hear a Scottish voice on YouTube. And I thought, well, because I'm sure that the first one I watched was either his second or the third, and then I watched his first one after that, and then I was watching them.
And then you were hooked.
I was hooked, yeah. And then suddenly he puts out this video, Game Over. I thought, no.
Funny you should say that. I was actually going through some of my old videos. I mean, I still watch them from time to time, and they're bloody awful. But you know what? I'm saying they're bloody awful. That's not really fair on anybody who makes YouTube channels, because it's definitely it's a required skill, and it's the only way you can possibly get better at it. Is by doing it. It's like public speaking. The only way you get better at it is by doing it all the time. And yeah, when I watch them back now, it's like, hello, welcome to my YouTube channel.
This intro was amazing.
Pardon?
Your old intro was amazing. No music, no intro, just hello.
Short and to the point.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I look back at them, but it's definitely a quad. But that's a very interesting. That's a very interesting point that you've made. So yeah, going back to your retro thing, so that's how you found my channel. But have you always been? Did you kind of? I mean, let's be honest. Most people were, unless you were made of money, most people were probably in the same situation as myself. You had to sell a system to buy a system. So probably the kind of 90s, the Commodore 64 and Spectrums were just machines of the past. Nobody bothered about it. Then obviously when the intrawebs came along, suddenly you start, I'm going to just Google Commodore 64. Not Jeff Minter, what the hell? Emulator, what's that? Oh, I can play whatever, Drop Zone. So did you have a gap for like 10 years when we weren't? I mean, you're not going to tell me that watching this channel got you revived in retro games, surely?
I've never watched a a retro channel on YouTube before Mamemeister. I mean, I'd used Mame before because I'd read about it, and I mean, I used to spend an absolute fortune back in the day on computer magazines. I used to buy Amstrad Action, Ace, Computer and Video Games. There was New Computer Weekly, which didn't last very long, but it was great. Because I remember looking through my old magazines, thinking, that was so long ago. Your channel revived my interest in the your favourite word, in the retro scene.
So did that kind of like...
But for a while, I wasn't even thinking about the, old stuff.
That's interesting. So it kind of it was almost like a nostalgia. I mean, most of the stuff I talk about is nostalgic stuff. So that was just what kind of switched the light on the way the back recesses of your brain,
Yeah.
Interesting.
I wish I could say the same, Alan, but I'd be lying.
You admit you're typing top 10 worst YouTube channels with Fat Scottish.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I've always kind of been into classic or retro. I remember in the early 90s, I had my Amiga, and I'd actually got hold of a SID chip emulator with a lot of C64 tunes, and that was the first emulation that I ever did. And I actually went back and bought a C64 in the early 90s because I missed those classic games. So I've always had that about me. I've never really wanted to sort of leave behind all the old systems, but as you were saying, by necessity, you had to sell a system to buy a system, and I was the same. When I wanted an Amiga, I had to sell my C64 and all the games and stuff. But a few years later, I bought one again. Regarding getting into the sort of YouTube retro scene, like many people, I think my first experience was Steve Benway. And it was just because I was emulating a game. I can't remember what game it was. And I just thought, I wonder if there are any reviews of this. And I just typed it into YouTube, was led to Steve's channel, caught up with that. But I was always on the lookout for good new retro channels. And yeah, again, I think it was I was just searching for a review of a game. I can't remember what it was. I think it was an Amiga game. And it led me to your channel. I watched the video and thought, this guy's not completely incompetent. And that was it. I was hooked.
I'm quite elated to hear the fact that both you guys found my channel through Google rather than somebody else type thing. So that's quite good. And the fact, I mean, I don't know who else in the world apart from Brian would type in 10-minute mashup. I'll probably be getting sued for using that name, but I certainly never heard of that before until I came up with that.
No, mashup isn't copyrighted. And I'm into dance music as well, so I could have easily found your channel that way too, but I didn't. And yeah, I mean, I watched a few of your videos. I liked what you did. At the time, you only had, 50-odd subscribers. It was
Wait, 50 odd? When did you start watching then, Jamie? I mean, you were a wee bit later. Brian's probably without you're the longest staying, Brian.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't start commenting straight away, and I don't even think subscribed straight away. I was watching your videos for a few weeks, and then I thought, I like what this guy does, and I subscribed. But yeah, it was you definitely had, I don't know, maybe 40 or 50, maybe 40, not many at all, subscribers, and the 10-minute mashups was the bulk of what you were putting out at that point.
Yeah.
But I liked what you did, and I thought, well, I'm going to, support this guy. I'm going to comment when I've got something to say, because if you're just talking to a dead camera and nobody's responding, that must be quite dispiriting, I guess.
Well, that was exactly what Brian touched on it. I mean, I think I actually watched that video back again, and I'd been making the channel for 2 months. So I mean, I was probably putting out maybe 4 or 5 videos a week. But I mean, it got to the stage. I don't know how many subs I had at that point. Maybe 20 or something, I have no idea. And I was basically saying how I was making these videos and I was getting like 3 or 4 views, and you're like, what? Seriously, you've got to get a grip of yourself. Why are you doing this? Yeah, you've got to do this because it's a, what do you call it? Yeah, you do it because you enjoy doing it. You couldn't do this if you didn't enjoy it. But ultimately, I don't make these just because I enjoy talking to an animate object. I enjoy it because I get the feedback, and it gives you a wee kind of warm, fuzzy glow. The fact that somebody somewhere is actually quite enjoying, the shite you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a nice community. We can all share out. I mean, we share knowledge with each other. I mean, Brian knows more about the Amstrad CPC than I do, so I discovered a couple of games on Brian's recommendation that I wouldn't have otherwise, been aware of. It's just sharing. It's just sharing interests.
It's amazing how far the channel's come. It really is.
Yeah.
Really is, because I mean, I know somebody who knows what's his name. The Games Master.
Oh, Dominic Diamond.
Dominic Diamond. I know someone who knows Dominic Diamond. That's my claim to fame.
Yeah, I wouldn't push it out that far. I know him. I mean, I've never met the guy in my life.
No, I thought you helped him with his running.
I did, yeah. I mean, when I obviously on Facebook, I added him as I requested to be a friend, and he added me onto his Facebook page. And then he was talking about he was training for a half marathon, so I sent him a message, and he got back to me, and then I ended up emailing him he gave me his email address. I emailed him a marathon sheet, and he was on it, but he kept posting, outrunning, blah blah blah, and I was getting in touch with him, sort of thing. So that was good, and I kept saying to him, anytime you're back in Scotland, you'll need to come and we'll go out for a run. I'll do that. And that was it. And then obviously things kind of tapered away, but I was always, it's bizarre because I'd put a picture, I don't know if you guys are on Facebook, but I'd put a picture a picture of my daughter's lizard, and then you get Dominic Diamond likes. It's like, if he's actually going on Facebook, it's just a bizarre thing. And then obviously when I started off the whole Blimey It's Only, I thought, what, let's go for this. I thought, you can only, ignore me. And when I sent him a message, I says, look, I call him Dom. I says, Dom, I've got this little, in fact, it actually starts before that, because I'm a member of, there's a guy, George, he started up this a computer club in Edinburgh about 4 years ago. So there's about maybe 10 of us go along once a month. We take along the C64, we take along machines and we just play games and talk pish. But we've got a Facebook page, and I thought, what, I'm going to get in touch with Dominic and see if he can do something for me. So I contacted him through Facebook and Messenger, talking about him. I says, look, Dominic, I says, I'm a member of this channel, this thing. I says, we do podcasts. I says, what would be the chance if I sent you a JPEG of Edinburgh Computer Club? What would be the chance of you holding it up with doing your big sort of cheesy thumbs up? He went, yeah, no problem, mate, no problem. So I made up 3 or 4 different things, Edinburgh PC Club, sent it off to him, and about a day later, he's got an email from him. There you go. And I don't know if you've actually ever seen the page. It's Edinburgh. If you type